Okay, so I have a question for you to start things off today.
I'm ready.
And I really want you to be completely honest with me here. Have you ever had one of those days where it genuinely feels like the universe has convened a secret committee specifically to plot against you?
Oh, the Committee of Bad Luck. Yes,
Well, right,
absolutely.
you know exactly the days I'm talking about. You wake up and you immediately stub your toe on the bed frame.
The same bed frame that hasn't moved an inch in 5 years.
Exactly. It hasn't moved in 5 years, but today it's suddenly out to get you, and then the coffee spills all over the counter.
And you're already running late.
Of course you are. So you rush out the door and you hit every single red light on the way to work. Every single one.
It feels incredibly personal when that happens.
It does. And then just when you think you've finally survived the morning, your boss creates a massive crisis out of completely thin air and drops it directly onto your desk.
And you're just sitting there staring at your computer screen.
Just sitting there and thinking, why is this happening to me? Like, why me specifically today?
We have all been there. I mean, it feels so random, doesn't it? It feels like we are just the hapless victim in a movie written by an absolute sadist.
It really does feel random. It feels entirely external, like the world is just throwing heavy bricks at us from the sky.
Right.
And this is the massive that we are wrestling with in today's deep dive. What if it isn't? What if everything that happens to you?
And we mean everything.
Yes, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the absolutely annoying, trivial things, and even the tragic things. What if all of it is actually being generated by you?
That is the big provocative question we're tackling today. We're looking at a truly fascinating set of materials that completely flips the script on how we perceive reality.
It really does flip the whole thing upside down.
It does, because the central thesis here is that the external world is not actually separate from us at all. It is a direct reflection, or like a literal mirror image of our internal state.
So this is the whole mirror in the mind concept. And I have to say, when I first started reading through these source materials, my immediate reaction was a lot of skepticism.
I think that's the natural first reaction for most people.
Because it sounds a bit like magic, right? Like, oh, I just think it and that therefore it appears out of nowhere. Or it sounds a little bit like that toxic positivity stuff.
Oh yeah, where if you get sick, it's just because you didn't smile enough that day.
Exactly. I was
Yeah.
really worried it was going to be that kind of material.
But it's not. As we dig deeper into these notes, the source material actually breaks this down with almost a mechanical precision.
Right. It gets very detailed.
It's not suggesting that you consciously want bad things to happen to you. No one wakes up and wants to stub their toe. It's suggesting that there is an actual physics to our emotions that we simply aren't taught in school.
The physics of emotion. I really like that phrasing.
It fits perfectly because the source is very specific about the mechanics of how this works. It's not just about thinking happy thoughts to get happy results.
Right.
It's about understanding a core premise. The interior flows outward. Always.
The interior flows outward.
Yes. The premise is that our eyes, which we generally think of as these passive cameras, just taking in the objective world, are actually projectors.
Okay, let's unpack this projector idea right now because there is a specific thought experiment in the notes that really stopped me in my tracks when I read it.
The sensory deprivation one.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Let's walk the listener through this because I think this is the foundational concept we really need to grasp before we can even begin to talk about fixing anything in our lives.
I agree. The source asks us to perform a mental experiment. I want you to imagine a scenario where we cut off all 5 of your physical senses.
Okay, so let's play this out right now. I'm imagining I'm in one of those float tanks. Pitch black.
Right. Totally pitch black. You cannot see a single thing, and you cannot hear anything either. Pure silence.
Okay, sight and sound are gone.
And you cannot touch, taste, or smell anything.
Yeah.
The entire physical data feed from the external world has just been severed completely.
Which is honestly pretty terrifying to even think about. It's like just floating in deep space.
It is terrifying because we rely on that feed so much. But the question the source asks is, in that void, where are you?
Well, the buildings are gone.
The buildings are gone, your friends are gone, the traffic you hate is gone, but are you gone?
No, I am still there. I am still conscious. I'm still thinking and feeling.
Exactly. You are still fully present in that void. And the source argues that this void is the internal screen. It is the blank canvas of reality.
The internal screen. Okay.
The argument here is that before any single event happens in the physical world,
Any event at all.
any event, before you argue with your partner, before you get that unexpected check in the mail, before the car crash or the big promotion at work, it exists on that internal screen in the void first.
So the movie is completely created in the dark room of the mind first, and then it is projected onto the screen of reality second.
Precisely. The external world is just the white sheet we hang up on the wall to watch the film.
Just a blank sheet.
That's all it is. So if you don't like the movie, if you don't like the violence or the drama playing out in your life, it is completely useless to run up to the screen and try to scrub it off.
Because the screen isn't the source of the image.
Exactly. You have to turn around and go back to the projector.
And really, that is the whole mission of this deep dive today. We need to figure out how to stop being just a helpless character in that movie.
Right. We want to stop just dodging the bad guys and crying over all the crazy plot twists.
And we want to figure out how to actually become the director of the film. We want to understand how to clean the lens of that projector so the movie itself changes for you.
That is the ultimate goal here. But to do that, we really have to understand the architecture of the place where this movie is actually being made.
Right. We need a map of the studio, basically.
Exactly. We need to understand the human mind. And the source material uses this incredible and very domestic analogy of the mind as a room.
I always love a good analogy. Lay it out for me.
Okay, so I want you to imagine your conscious mind. The part of you that thinks plans decides what you're going to eat for lunch today. The part that is actively listening to us right now.
Okay, I've got it.
Imagine that conscious part of your mind as a living room.
Okay, I'm picturing a living room. Hopefully it's a nice one.
Well, ideally, yes.
Yeah.
This is where you live your daily life. Now think about the whole self-help industry or our education system or even therapy to some extent.
Sure.
We are constantly trying to bring what the source calls clean furniture into this living room.
Clean furniture. What does that look like?
In this analogy, clean furniture represents your positive affirmations, your new goals, your logical decisions.
Okay, so if I wake up and say, I'm going to be highly successful this year.
That is a beautiful new white armchair. And you drag it right into the middle of the living room.
I see. And if I say, I'm going to be a calm and patient person today.
That is a lovely brand new rug. You roll it out in the room.
Man, I have bought so much of that kind of furniture over the years. I literally have I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week lamp.
We all do.
I have I'm going to save 50% of my paycheck sofa. I have decorated my whole house with this stuff.
We try so hard to decorate our minds with these high-quality thoughts. But here is the major problem. I want you to look at that living room in your mind. Is it totally empty?
Well, no. If it's anything like my actual physical living room, it's definitely lived in.
Right. The source describes the average human mind not as a pristine, empty room just waiting to be beautifully decorated, but as a room that is already incredibly cluttered, dusty, and completely messy.
Just full of stuff.
It's filled with mental noise. So you go and drag this beautiful new white armchair, your brand new positive affirmation into the room, and what happens? You end up shoving it right on top of a giant pile of old newspapers, dirty laundry, and mud.
And then we sit there and wonder why the room still looks completely messy. The new chair just gets totally lost under all the junk.
It completely blends into the mess.
This is so relatable because I feel like this is exactly what happens every single time we try to start a new habit.
It is the exact mechanism.
We try to use our willpower, which I guess is the clean furniture, but we haven't actually bothered to clean the floor first.
Exactly. You're trying to overlay a brand new reality on top of an old, deeply cluttered one. But the analogy actually gets much deeper here.
Oh, it gets worse than a messy floor.
Much worse.
Okay.
Because a house isn't just a living room on the ground floor. Below this living room, there is a cellar, a deep, dark dungeon.
Okay, the dreaded cellar.
Yes. The source refers to it specifically as the Mazen.
Mazen, that sounds really ominous.
It translates roughly to a cellar, a vault, or deep, deep storage. And this isn't just where you put your old winter coats or the holiday decorations.
Right.
This is the very foundation of the house itself. And it is where the ancestral trauma lives.
Okay, wait, let's pause on ancestral trauma for a second because that is a big concept. You're saying this cellar basically comes pre-stocked when we are born.
Oh, absolutely it does. You do not buy this house empty. You inherit the house.
Wow.
And the previous owners, meaning your parents, your grandparents, your entire lineage, they left all of their old boxes down in the Mazen.
So I'm dealing with their stuff too.
Yes. Maybe there is a heavy box down there labeled money is incredibly scarce from a grandfather who lived through a severe economic depression.
Oh, I see.
You didn't pack that box. You didn't put it down there.
Yeah.
But it is sitting right there in your cellar.
That feels incredibly unfair, honestly. I have to deal with my grandfather's financial anxiety.
It is unfair. You know, gravity is also unfair if you happen to fall off a tall ladder. It's just physics.
Yeah.
The information is physically stored in the system.
And the system is my subconscious mind.
Exactly. This cellar is your subconscious. And the source outlines a specific mechanism here that perfectly explains why all your positive affirmations keep failing. They call it the leak.
The leak. Okay, paint this picture for me.
Imagine you are standing up there in your living room. You have your beautiful white furniture arranged. You are standing there chanting, I am abundant,
I am abundant.
wealthy, I am happy.
Right, you are literally spraying positivity air fresheners everywhere. But underneath the floorboards, down in that dark, damp cellar, something is rotting.
Yeah, that is a really visceral image. Rotting.
It's highly necessary to visualize it that way, because if there is rotting organic matter in the cellar, which represents unresolved trauma, deep shame, or intense fear, the smell of that rot will eventually rise.
It has nowhere else to go.
Right. You absolutely cannot stop it. It seeps right up through the floorboards. It permeates the nice new rug. It gets deep into the fabric of that brand new white chair.
So you're sitting up there chanting, I am abundant, but the actual room smells like...
The room literally smells like I am not enough. The room smells deeply of scarcity.
Oh.
And this brings us to the most critical insight of this whole section. This is one you need to write on a sticky note and put on your fridge. You cannot fix a cellar problem with a living room solution. Oof, let me repeat that. You cannot fix a cellar problem with a living room solution. That really hits hard.
It's the truth of why we get so stuck.
So basically applying surface level logic, like looking in the mirror and telling yourself to just be confident today, that is a living room solution.
Completely correct. It is pure logic. But the cellar does not speak logic. The cellar operates entirely on feeling and deep memory.
So they are speaking two different languages.
Exactly. You simply cannot think your way out of a feeling problem. If the cellar is totally filled with the feeling of I am unsafe, the smell of fear is going to fill up the living room no matter what brilliant logical arguments you try to make.
And the external world then, the movie we are all watching every day, what is it actually reacting to? The furniture or the smell?
It reacts entirely to the smell. The external world does not listen to what you say you want. It sniffs out exactly what you are actually broadcasting.
This is huge.
If you have a massive financial block that just never seems to go away no matter how hard you work, or a repetitive pattern of bad relationship failures, or just this chronic underlying dissatisfaction with life, that isn't just a streak of bad luck.
That is the smell from the cellar.
That is the smell seeping out.
So we have the room, which is the conscious mind, and the cellar, which is the subconscious. Now we really need to talk about how this architecture actually goes out and creates our physical reality.
The mechanics of manifestation.
Because the source uses another analogy here that I found really fascinating, and it connects directly to this whole idea of broadcasting an odor, the analogy of smoke.
This is where we transition from just the layout of the mind to the actual mechanics of how reality is built. The source suggests that every single emotion and every single thought generates smoke.
Okay, let's visualize this clearly. Say you're sitting there at your desk seething with anger because someone was really rude to you on an email. That anger isn't just staying neatly inside your head, right?
No, not at all. It is actively generating a dark smoke. If you feel deep guilt, intense anger, paralyzing fear, or even sharp jealousy inside, it rises up out of you, just like smoke from a fire.
And then where does it go?
Now here is the really wild part. This is where the whole projection theory becomes completely literal. This emotional smoke travels outward from your body, and it actually solidifies into physical matter and real events.
Wait, it solidifies. That is intense. So my internal invisible smoke of guilt could literally solidify into what? A real person?
Yes, it takes the shape of a person or a specific situation. Let's say you have some deep, unresolved guilt locked away in the cellar.
Okay, say I feel like I'm secretly a fraud at work.
Right. Maybe you deeply feel you don't actually deserve your success. That guilt generates smoke, it rises up, that travels out of you, and it literally forms into a highly critical boss.
Or a really judgmental friend.
Exactly. And then they suddenly accuse you of something or criticize your work. And you sit there and you think they are the problem.
I think, why is this person being so incredibly mean to me today?
But according to this theory, they are just the smoke of your own internal guilt taking human form to show you what is inside you.
Whoa. That is really confronting. It's basically saying there are absolutely no random villains in our lives.
It completely removes the luxury of blaming other people for our problems, yes.
Which is a luxury we really enjoy having.
We do love to blame. But there is a mathematical component to this smoke theory that the source highlights, which makes it even more profound. It is a highly precise equation.
Oh, I remember remember this part from the notes, the centimeter measurement thing.
Yes. The source posits a strict law of equivalent exchange here. If the smoke rises 2 centimeters inside of you, it reflects exactly 2 centimeters outside in the real world.
2 centimeters and 2 centimeters out.
If it rises 10 centimeters inside, it reflects 10 centimeters outside. It is perfect math.
Okay, let's really break that down. Because usually when bad things happen, we tend to think life is incredibly disproportionate. We think, well, I was only a little bit stressed about my presentation. Why did my car engine just completely explode on the highway?
Right? We see a huge disconnect. But you have to ask yourself, were you really only a little bit stressed? Or was the conscious stress up in the living room very small, while the subconscious terror down in the cellar was actually massive?
Oh, I see. Because the external reality doesn't just measure the living room, it measures the total amount of smoke.
Exactly. The external world is reacting to the total output of the entire house.
So a massive internal feeling of rage, even if I am suppressing it and smiling at everyone, will eventually manifest as a massive external conflict.
It has to. You simply cannot have a level 10 drama happen in your life without a level 10 source code running in your mind. The physics of this system simply doesn't allow for it.
This implies a level of precision that is honestly kind of terrifying. There are no accidents at all.
It is terrifying at first, but it is also deeply empowering because it means the controls to your life are actually in your own hands.
Yeah.
You aren't at the mercy of chance.
Right.
And we should mention, this works exactly the same way for positive smoke, too. This isn't just about doom and gloom and car crashes.
All right, let's talk about the good stuff, the high vibration smoke.
Yes. If you do a genuinely selfless act of kindness, and I mean truly selfless, not because you want credit on social media or you expect a favor back, but just because you feel a genuine, deep desire to generate pure joy.
And that joy is a very high quality, high frequency smoke.
Exactly. It rises up rapidly. And the source says shortly after you do that, a desire you have been holding on to manifests almost effortlessly.
Just out of the blue.
You might randomly find a $100 bill, or you suddenly get that career opportunity you really wanted. The high-frequency smoke solidifies into a high-frequency event.
Now, there was a really interesting point in the dialogue about the actual speed of this feedback loop. Because historically, in spiritual text, we usually call this concept karma, right?
Right, cause and effect.
And karma usually takes its sweet time. It's famous for being slow.
Yes. Historically, the echo took a long time to come back. You might do something bad or feel something deeply negative, and the physical consequence of that wouldn't show up for years or maybe even a decade.
But the source material suggests something is changing right now.
It suggests the loop is actively tightening. The buffer time between the thought and the manifestation is collapsing. Manifestations, both the good ones and the bad ones, are happening almost instantly now.
Why is that, though? Is it just a general feeling the author has, or is there an actual reason for this acceleration?
Well, the source speaks to a broad shift in human consciousness, but we can also look at it psychologically and practically. In our modern hyper-connected world, our processing speeds are just generally faster.
We take in so much more data every day.
Exactly. Our overall awareness is much higher. So the mirror of reality is getting polished. It's becoming way more reflective and way more immediate.
So if I'm walking down the street radiating pure joy, that's great. I get an instant reward. But if I'm spiraling in dark anxiety,
You get an instant flat tire.
fantastic. Just what I needed.
But look at it this way. Instead of being afraid of it, it dramatically accelerates your learning process.
How
If you touch a hot stove and you get burned instantly, you learn very quickly not to ever touch it again. But if you touch a hot stove and you don't get a blister until a week later, you might not even make the connection between the stove and the blister.
That makes a lot of sense. The speed actually helps us see the underlying code.
Exactly. You start to easily track the cause and effect. You realize, oh, I was furious all morning and then I hit terrible traffic, or I felt incredibly grateful during my commute and then I got a free coffee at the cafe.
The correlation becomes undeniable.
You start to clearly see that you are the one doing it.
This perfectly leads us into the concept of the illusion of others, because the source says we are constantly just dancing with our own shadows.
It's a very poetic way to put it, but it's meant literally. When we get into a fight with someone, we are actually fighting a materialized physical aspect of our own internal conflict.
So if I am yelling at someone for crossing my boundaries,
If I am yelling at you for being disrespectful to me, I don't need to fix you. I need to look in the mirror and ask myself a very hard question. Where am I currently disrespecting myself?
wow.
Or where am I secretly disrespecting other people in my mind? You were just the actor that the universe hired to show me the physical form of my own smoke.
Hired actors. Okay, we're definitely going to come back to that specific phrase because that totally reframes every single breakup and argument I've ever had in my entire life.
It reframes everything.
But before we get there, I really want to talk about specific repeating patterns because the source dives into two massive ones that affect almost everybody: relationships and money.
These are always the big two, aren't they?
All right.
These are the main areas where the smell coming up from the cellar is usually the absolute strongest.
Let's look at relationships first. The source brings up a specific case study that I think a huge number of people are going to resonate with. The pattern of someone saying, I just can't get married, or I only seem to attract partners who are completely emotionally unavailable.
Right. And the person stuck in that loop genuinely thinks, I just have terrible luck in love. All the good ones are already taken. My city is awful for dating.
They blame the external screen.
Exactly. But the source asks a vital question here. Why this? Why this specific recurring pattern year after year?
And the answer, as we know now, is down in the cellar. But here is the nuance that I think is just so incredibly important for people to hear. It's not sabotage, is it?
No. And this is a huge relief for a lot of people to understand. Your subconscious mind is not your enemy. It is not actively trying to ruin your life. It is actually your ultimate protector. It is acting as a bodyguard.
But it's a bodyguard operating on really bad intel.
Exactly. Let's trace it back. Let's say you watched your parents' marriage closely as a young child, and maybe there was a lot of bitter fighting.
Or maybe they just seemed really miserable and trapped.
Right. Maybe you watched your mother completely lose her independence, or your father become totally silent. As a sponge-like child, you internalized a specific code.
You wrote a program.
You wrote a program that said marriage equals a total loss of freedom, or men simply cannot be trusted, or women are endlessly controlling.
And that record gets packed into a box and shoved deep into the cellar.
Yes. Now, fast forward 30 years, you're a mature adult, you are living up in the living room, and you actively want to get married.
I am on all the dating apps. I am going on blind dates. I am literally buying I am getting married soon furniture for my living room.
You are doing all the right logical things. But your bodyguard, who lives down in the cellar, sees you walking toward the altar, and what does it do?
It panics.
It screams red alert. The boss is walking directly toward the loss of freedom trap. The boss is walking toward danger. I have to save them immediately.
So the subconscious, brilliantly and effectively, ensures you never actually find a viable partner, just to save you.
Exactly. It magnetically attracts you to people who are already married to someone else, or people who live in another country, or people who are so emotionally distant they could never commit to you.
It ensures the marriage never happens.
Yeah. It is perfectly fulfilling its duty to protect you from what it genuinely believes is pure pain.
That is honestly mind-blowing. It perfectly explains why we feel so stuck and frustrated. We are fighting a massive, powerful part of ourselves that actually loves us, but is just terribly misguided.
It's a highly effective safety protocol running on a completely outdated operating system. The goal here isn't to fight the bodyguard or hate yourself. The goal is to simply update the software.
And the exact same principle applies to our judgments of other people, right? The notes call this the mirror of judgment. This part actually annoyed me quite a bit when I first read it because it feels like I'm not even allowed to have basic opinions on people anymore.
I know. It is a very tough pill to swallow for the ego. The source explicitly says if you judge someone, let's say, for example, you harsh judge a colleague for being a terrible gossip, you have likely just cast that exact same smoke out into the world.
Okay, so if I sit there judging a thief for stealing, what happens? I get robbed.
You might get robbed. Or you might suddenly get falsely accused of stealing something at work. Or you might just feel like you are being robbed of your precious time by someone.
So the specific physical form might change, but the core energy always returns to the sender.
Yes, the external world is functioning as a flawless teaching machine.
It is designed to show you exactly what you still need to heal inside yourself. And this connects back to a very empowering idea that we touched on earlier. If you are the one projecting the film, you're not a victim of the movie.
You are the author of the entire script.
That's the big shift, isn't it? Moving away from asking, why is this terrible thing happening to me, and instead pausing to ask which specific part of me just wrote this scene.
That changes your entire relationship with reality.
But knowing this theory is one thing. Doing something practical about it is another. I don't want to just sit around knowing I have a smelly cellar. I really want to know how to clean it.
Right. Theory is useless without application.
And the source material is actually very practical here. It outlines a very specific cleaning process.
Yes, we can't just talk endlessly about the cellar from the safety of the living room, we actually have to walk down the stairs and go into the dark. And the source outlines 3 distinct steps for doing this.
Okay, let's go through them. Step 1 is radical honesty. Now, this sounds really easy on paper, just be honest, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually the hardest one in practice.
It is the hardest because we lie to ourselves constantly all day long.
We really do.
It is a basic survival mechanism. We are experts at masking our true dark emotions. We say things to ourselves like, oh, I'm not fiercely jealous of my friend's promotion. I'm just slightly concerned the new role is too much stress for them.
Oh, wow, that is such a classic deflection. Or we say, I'm not raging mad at you, I'm just feeling a little disappointed.
Or the most common lie of all, I'm totally fine. Everything is just fine.
The source says we have to stop doing that immediately.
Stop it completely. You must stop lying to yourself. If you feel jealous, you have to say out loud, yes, I am incredibly jealous right now. If you feel pure hate, you have to admit, I feel pure hate in my body at this moment.
Why is the vocal admission so mechanically important here?
Because you physically cannot clean a dirty room if you keep pretending the pile of dirt isn't actually sitting right there on the rug.
Yeah.
Masking the emotions completely prevents the healing process from even starting.
You have to actually look at the junk.
You have to look at the massive pile of junk and say, clearly that is a pile of junk. Only then can you begin to pick it up and move it. The very moment you truly acknowledge the dark emotion without judging yourself for having it, you instantly stop the smoke from solidifying.
You catch it while it is still just a gas.
Exactly. You prevent it from becoming a car crash.
Okay, so I do step 1. I admit I'm furious, or I admit I'm terrified. Now what do I do? Step 2 is where we get into this almost time travel aspect. Returning to the first photo. They also call it inner child work.
This is a deep visualization technique, and it is the absolute core of the entire cleaning process. The source strongly suggests that when a sudden, strong, negative emotion arises in your day, let's say a massive, unexpected wave of deep unworthiness or sharp fear, you shouldn't just push it away or try to logically talk yourself out of it.
Which is what we usually do. We try to distract ourselves.
Right, we look at our phones. Instead, the source says, stop whatever you were doing and close your eyes.
Okay, eyes closed. I'm feeling terrible and my eyes are closed.
Now ask your subconscious mind to show you the original slide or the very first memory associated with this exact physical feeling.
The first photo.
Yes. And the source says if you do this, you will almost always see a very young version of yourself.
Like me as a child. Maybe I'm 5 or 6 years old. Maybe I'm standing in my kindergarten classroom.
Exactly. You will see a child frozen in a specific moment of intense fear or cruel rejection or deep confusion. Maybe your dad is yelling in the background. Maybe your mom is sitting there crying. You are seeing the actual first photo where that specific feeling was born.
And here is the actual intervention part. Usually when we think about our traumatic past in therapy, we tend to analyze it. We say things like, oh, well, my dad was just really stressed because of his demanding job.
Right. And that is just the living room trying to make logical sense of the seller's pain.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all. The source says do not analyze the memory. Do not try to psychoanalyze why your parents did what they did. Instead, go directly to the small child in the visualization.
Physically walk up to them in your mind's eye.
Yes. Go right up to them. Sit down on the floor with them. Kneel down so you are at their eye level. Look them directly in the eyes.
This is such a tender concept. You really just sit there with them.
You sit right there with them in the pain, and you speak to them. You tell them exactly what they desperately needed to hear in that terrible moment but didn't.
What do you say?
You say, I am here with you now. You are completely safe. You are incredibly valuable just as you are. You are deeply loved. I am the adult now, and I promise I will always protect you.
You literally become the parent that you needed in that moment. You are updating the bodyguard's core instructions.
Yes, you are overwriting the code. You validate their existence and their pain. And you keep doing this in the visualization. You keep talking to them until you see the child's facial expression actually change.
Until they finally smile.
Until they smile, or they let out a breath and relax, or they reach out and hug you.
And the source mentions a very specific physical side effect of this process, which I found so incredibly interesting because I've actually experienced this exact thing in therapy before.
The physical release.
Yeah, the tears.
Exactly. The source describes the trapped emotional trauma as being completely solid or frozen solid down in the cellar.
Like a block of ice.
When you go down there and validate that inner child with warmth, that solid block of emotion finally melts. It literally turns from a solid into a liquid. And it leaves your physical body in the form of tears.
So crying in this context isn't a sign of weakness or losing control at all. It's literally the toxic debris physically leaving the biological system.
It is the literal cleaning process in action. When those deep tears flow, you are actively emptying out the cellar. You are scrubbing away the rotting material that was causing the bad smell in the first place.
That is beautiful. Now, sometimes, though, the trauma is just way too heavy to handle. Or maybe we close our eyes and we simply cannot find the specific memory. It's just this big, dark, terrifying knot in our chest.
That happens quite often. And there's exactly where step 3 comes in, the surrender option.
Let's talk about surrender, because this is for when the logical mind just totally hits a brick wall. You can't figure out the puzzle.
When you are overwhelmed, the source suggests you have to hand the problem over to something larger. They call it divine or the essence of the universe. Whatever specific language works for your belief system,
How do you do that?
you simply say out loud, I cannot logically solve this problem. It is too big for me. I completely surrender this heavy knot of emotion to the source. Take it from me.
And there's a very specific visualization technique here, too, involving colored light.
Yes. The source recommends visualizing a bright pink light coming down.
Why pink specifically? Why not white or gold?
In this specific esoteric context, pink visually represents the exact frequency of pure, unconditional love. It acts as a universal solvent.
A solvent.
If the deep trauma is a hard, calcified rock, then unconditional love is the powerful acid that completely dissolves it. You sit there and visualize this intense pink light wrapping tightly around the dark knot in your chest or wrapping around the terrified inner child, and you just watch it slowly dissolve the hardness away.
It's kind of like calling in a massive professional cleaning crew when the mess in the house is just way too big and toxic for you to handle all by yourself.
That is a brilliant way to put it. It's openly acknowledging that there is a power much greater than your tiny conscious mind that can step in and help with the really heavy lifting.
I really want to pivot now to the more philosophical side of these notes, because the latter half of the source material goes into some really advanced and challenging territory, specifically the radical idea that there is actually no such thing as good or bad.
This is definitely where we have to deeply stretch our conditioned thinking, because we are socially conditioned from birth to judge literally everything around us.
Right. We say things all day like, oh, this traffic jam is bad, or this sudden breakup is a very bad thing.
Or even internal judgments. Being unorganized is bad, therefore I have a messy house, so I am inherently a bad person.
We attach moral weight to everything.
We do. But the source uses a great example here to break this down. The example of a newborn baby. A baby does not possess any concept of good or bad.
Right.
A baby simply experiences reality. They cry, they laugh, they sleep, they make a mess in their diaper. It isn't good or bad to them. It's all just raw experience happening in the moment.
We are the ones who come along and teach them all the labels. We teach them what to feel shame about.
We construct these rigid, binary systems of morality for them. But the source argues from a higher perspective that absolutely nothing in the entire system is actually bad in the grand scheme of things. Every single event is ultimately serving the continued evolution of human consciousness.
Even the really deeply painful stuff, the tragedies.
Especially the deeply painful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because pain is the greatest catalyst for change. And this brings us right back to that incredibly provocative hired actors concept that we briefly touched on earlier.
Okay, yes. This is the part I warned the listeners about in the intro, reframing the villains in our lives.
I want you to think about the people in your life who have genuinely hurt you the absolute most.
Okay, I have a few faces in mind.
The ex-partner who callously cheated on you.
Mm.
The trusted business partner who stole money from you. The friend who betrayed your deepest secret. The source suggests that from the elevated perspective of your soul or your higher self, you actually cast them in those terrible roles.
Okay, hold on a second. I really need to push back on this idea here.
Yeah.
Because why on earth would I ever purposefully hire someone to completely break my heart and ruin my life? That just sounds completely masochistic to me.
It absolutely sounds masochistic from the limited perspective of the living room. Because what does the conscious mind want? The living room only wants comfort, safety, and predictability.
Right, I want to be happy and relaxed.
But your soul does not care about your comfort. Your soul only wants massive growth and evolution. Let me ask you this. Why would you ever hire a cruel personal trainer to make your muscles scream in agony for an hour?
Well, obviously I do it so I can get physically stronger.
Exactly. You hire the pain to cause the growth.
Yeah.
The theory here is that you subconsciously hired that cheating partner to forcibly push you into a massive spiritual awakening.
Oh, wow.
You hired them to mercilessly show you your own hidden lack of self-worth. You hired them to completely pull the rug out from under you, so you had absolutely no choice but to finally find your own internal strength because you can no longer rely on them to prop you up.
So you're saying that without that horrific heartbreak, I would never have actually learned true self-love. Without that awful betrayal, I would have just stayed weak and dependent forever.
Precisely. They agreed on some unseen level to play the cruel villain in your movie just so you could finally be forced to become the hero of your own story. And here is the truly provocative thought the source offers on this dynamic. That terrible ex-partner who broke your heart into a million pieces actually deserves a profound thank you from you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that's asking a whole lot. I'm really not sure I'm spiritually evolved enough to be there yet.
I know it is a radically difficult thought to process, but if you truly accept the premise that they were just acting as a mirror, showing you a deep wound that you already carried inside you so that you could finally see it and heal it, then yes, logically they performed an incredibly valuable service for your soul.
It fundamentally changes the entire dynamic of how we view forgiveness, doesn't it?
It leads us directly to what the source calls the end of
The
forgiveness.
end of forgiveness, what does that mean?
It means that true ultimate forgiveness, according to this deep dive, is finally realizing that there is actually nobody out there to forgive in the first place.
Because if that person who hurt me was really just a physical projection of my own internal shadow.
Then trying to forgive them is kind of missing the point. Forgiving them is really just finally forgiving yourself.
Wow.
When you truly realize on a cellular level that there is no one out there, that the entire world is just a giant 3D reflection of your own mind, the internal war finally ends. You completely stop trying to punch the mirror, and you finally achieve a lasting state of total neutrality and peace.
That is heavy stuff. But you know, it also feels incredibly freeing when you really think about it. It completely takes all the endless drama out of life. You realize you're not just a tragic victim of a cold, cruel world. You're actually a powerful student sitting in a customized classroom that you yourself design.
It is the ultimate taking back of your own power. And that beautiful realization leads right into the final and perhaps most deeply spiritual part of this entire source material, the fundamental question of who is I?
Right, because if I'm not my passing thoughts, because as we established, those are just the furniture moving around the room, and I'm definitely not my deep trauma, because that's just old boxes sitting down in the cellar,
Yeah.
then who exactly is the I that is experiencing all of this?
You are the pure observer of the system.
Yep.
The source calls this core identity the essence or the urs.
There is a protocol in the notes for finding this right. The notice protocol.
Yes. It's a very simple but profound mindfulness exercise. Think about what happens right before you get a glass of water. Before your physical body even moves a muscle to stand up in a wool, something deep inside of you notices the feeling of thirst.
It says, oh, I am thirsty.
Right. But ask yourself, who exactly is the I that just noticed the body being thirsty?
It's the awareness behind the thought.
Exactly. That silent noticer is the essence. You are not your physical body. You are the silent consciousness that observes your body. You are not your frantic thoughts. You are the quiet space that observes the thoughts passing by.
It's finding that tiny split second of pure awareness before the reaction happens. And I guess the ultimate goal is to learn how to live your entire life from that quiet place, instead of living from the frantic, chattering panic of the conscious mind.
That is the goal. And by doing so, you slowly rebuild your core trust in the universe. The source shares a really touching and relatable anecdote here about the nature of childhood prayer and trust.
Let's hear it.
Do you remember being a very young kid and just feeling this absolute, unshakable certainty that your parents or God or the universe would perfectly protect you from all harm?
Yeah, I really do. I remember vividly just holding my dad's hand while we were crossing a super busy street. I didn't even bother to look at the massive trucks zooming by. I didn't calculate the speed of the traffic or worry about dying. I just held the hand. I completely trusted the hand to guide me safely to the other side.
It's a beautiful state of being. But as we age and accumulate trauma in the cellar, we completely lose that inherent trust. We start deeply fearing the future.
We become obsessed with controlling every tiny detail.
We try to micromanage everything because we don't trust that big hand anymore. We honestly think we have to frantically dodge all the fast cars completely by ourselves.
And it's exhausting. It burns us out. So the ultimate goal of all this cleaning is to return to that childlike state of trust.
To return to the peaceful state of simply holding the parent's hand. deeply knowing that you are always guided and always protected by the essence. When you fully align with this noticer inside, you finally stop frantically trying to rewrite and control the movie of your life.
You just sit back in your seat, relax, and let all the good scenes start to flow naturally on the screen.
You step out of the frantic micromanagement and you just let it happen.
You basically become the relaxed audience member and the powerful director at the exact same time.
That is beautifully put. You set the clear intention. You say, I want a beautiful movie about love and abundance. And then you completely trust the Universal Studio to handle the actual production of the film.
So let's try to pull all this together and summarize this truly massive journey we've been on today.
It's been a lot of ground to cover.
It really has. We started with the radical idea that the mind actively projects physical reality, just like a movie projector casting light on a blank screen.
And then we explored the architecture of that mind, the living room of the conscious logical mind, and the dark cellar of the subconscious, where all the old hidden smell actually comes from.
We discussed how the invisible smoke of our deeply held emotions literally solidifies into the difficult people and the chaotic events around us.
Including the exact mathematical precision of that projection. The 2 centimeters in equals 2 centimeters out rule.
Right. We talked about how our subconscious acts as a bodyguard, trying to protect us from perceived dangerous things like marriage or financial success based on completely outdated records in the cellar.
And most importantly, we learned the practical cleaning process. Practicing radical honesty with our dark emotions, healing the terrified inner child with the first photo technique, and using the powerful pink light of surrender for the trauma that is just too heavy to lift.
And finally, we touched on the advanced ideas of realizing that the villains in our lives are just hired actors playing a role for our growth, which finally allows us to completely let go of our victimhood, drop the need for forgiveness, and return to the quiet peace of the essence.
It really all boils down to one final massive takeaway: the concept of balance.
Let's expand on that balance.
The goal of all this work is not to completely destroy your ego or forcefully shut down your logical mind. You need those tools to navigate the physical world. You just need to diligently clean the room so you can finally be the true master of the house.
You transition from living miserably in a chaotic, filthy room to dwelling in a bright, clean, organized space where you consciously choose exactly which thoughts you want to entertain and sit on.
Exactly. You finally become the true master of the house rather than just a frightened squatter hiding down in your own dark basement.
I have to say, I feel like I need to go home right now and do some incredibly serious mental deep cleaning.
We all have boxes in the cellar to unpack.
I definitely have some very long overdue conversations to have with my own inner child tonight. But before we wrap up and say goodbye, we always like to leave our dedicated listeners with a practical challenge.
Something to test this wild theory out in the real world.
Exactly. So what is the challenge for today based on these notes?
Here's the challenge I want to offer everyone listening today. The very next time something happens to you, and I mean anything at all, someone abruptly cuts you off in heavy traffic, a coworker pays you a really nice unexpected compliment, or you just suddenly lose your car keys.
Big or small?
Big or small.
Yeah.
Just pause for one split second. Don't react emotionally. Just freeze and pause.
Okay, that's a pause.
And in that quiet pause, I want you to ask yourself this one single profound question. Which specific part of me just wrote this exact scene?
Wow. Which specific part of me just wrote this exact scene? That is incredibly powerful.
It is the ultimate pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
Because it instantly forcefully shifts you from being a helpless complaining victim back to being the powerful creator. It literally moves you from staring at the blank screen back to standing behind the lens of the projector.
Try it for just one single day, folks. See how it completely changes the movie you are watching.
It will change everything.
Well, I'm definitely trying that on my drive home today. Thank you so much for guiding us through this incredibly deep dive today. It has truly been a wild trip down through the dark cellar and back up into the light.
It was an absolute pleasure exploring this with you.
And to everyone out there listening to us, grab your director's chair today. It is your movie and no one else's. Make it a really good one. We'll see you all next time in the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.